Genesis chapter 4, verse 15. All right. We ended with chapter 14 where it says, "You have banished me." This is Cain. "You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me." So this is him saying, my punishment is greater than, you know, than I can bear, or um, then it may be accepted, so on and so forth. Um, so we moving on to verse 15, Genesis 4:15. We're going to read it first in the New Living Translation, verse 15 through 17. Okay, 15 through 17, and it says, Yahuwah replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then Yahuwah put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left Yahuwah's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain had sexual relations with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Then Cain founded a city which he named Enoch after his son. All right. Verse 15, King James Version. And it says, "And Yahuwah said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahuwah set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him." All right. Lest anyone find him should kill him. First, I want to look at, again, we saw this word already before. It wasn't directly, but it was one of the definitions. Okay, so we're looking at sevenfold. Okay, sevenfold concordant is H7659. Okay, sevenfold. All right. All right. It is in Hebrew, it's Shib Athim. Athim. Hey. Sevenfold. So it says dual adverb. Okay. 7 times. Okay. Sevenfold. And then 7 times. We're going to go a little bit deeper in there. The H7651. It says the primitive cardinal number 7 as the sacred full number. Okay, sacred full number. This is a complete sacred number. Okay, also verbally 7 times, by implication a week. Okay, by extension an indefinite number. Okay, by sevenfold, 17, 17th. Okay, 17th time. Okay, but we're going to go a little bit deeper because we really want, first, before we go a little bit deeper, the biggest thing is, like I said before, it says as the sacred full number. So again, we heard sevenfold before. What did I explain sevenfold with? The sevenfold spirits of Yahuwah, of the Most High. So remember, he had sevenfold spirits. So that's the menorah candlesticks. Okay, so that means it's sacred. So that's why 7 is so important, because 7 is the number of completion. Okay, all right. So, and it's sacred. All right. So we're gonna go a little bit deeper to H7650. Okay, and it says properly to be complete. All right, but used only as a denominative from, which is 7, to 7 oneself. That is, swear, okay? As if by repeating a declaration 7 times, okay? Adjure, charge, all right? By an oath, with an oath, feed to the full, okay? And it says, take an oath straightly, okay? Calls to make to swear, okay? So this is a complete sacred number, okay? So this means it is the most sacred of sacreds number, okay? This is his number, obviously, okay? Again, when he did the first covenant with Abraham, that was a sevenfold covenant, okay? Sevenfold oath, okay? Where he passed through the pieces of the animals, all right? So we know that it is important and we know that it is a strong oath, okay? We're going to go back. So it says, Yahuwah replied, no, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you. Okay. So we know it is significant that he laid a mark on Cain and said, if anybody kills you, then, okay, it's going to be some problems for that person. Okay. All right. And the next one. All right. So don't you know that special word that we always see off? It's what, 853. Okay. Now, this is the same word, but it don't have the emphasis on it because it is the word actually straight mark. Okay. So it's the same definition, but off. Okay. 853 is that is Yahuwah's mark. Okay, but this just literally in the verse says mark, so it's the same definition. Okay, so remember that definition meant a signal. Okay, literally or figuratively, as a flag, beacon, monument, omen, prodigy, evidence, etc. Mark, sign, token. Okay, so this is not a thing that's going to, this specific thing is not a thing that's going to continually happen or say that it is a mark or a pillar throughout time. Okay, now going into that verse, the part of the verse where it says, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, okay, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken. Okay, we're going to look at a few of these references. Okay, we're going to start off with Psalms 59:11. Psalms 59:11. It says, don't kill them, for my people soon forget such lessons. Stagger them with your power and bring them to their knees. O Yahuwah, our shield. Okay. So what's going on here? Okay. Again, it says, don't kill them, for my people soon forget such lessons. He said, stagger. Okay. Stagger them with your power. Okay. So, a lot of times when we read the Old Testament, when they are scattered or when they are killed, he says, I'm going to kill until you're utterly destroyed. Okay. A lot of people get confused. They're like, well, how many times are you going to destroy the Israelites? A lot of people think that he means all of them. Okay. um, Not every one of the Israelites go into bondage or be killed on those days of Yahuwah or those days of the Lord. Okay. And there's multiple days of condemnation, but there's the one day when he comes back. Okay. So what happens is, what I want y'all to realize is, okay, this is a chastisement. Okay, it says, don't kill them, for my people soon forget such lessons. Okay, so what's actually happening is they're going into bondage. Some of them are killed. Some of them who were listening and was adhering to the Most High, okay, they wasn't punished. Okay, in some of those places. Okay, some of those places they went into bondage, but also they were blessed, like Daniel. Okay, so with that being said, we do have to understand that there are curses, okay, on not just the children of Yasharal or Israel, but also us, like we talked about last week, okay? All right. Hosea chapter 1, verse 4. And Yahuwah said, name the child Jezreel, okay? For I am about to punish King Jehu's dynasty to avenge the murder he committed at Jezreel. In fact, I will bring an end to Israel independence. Okay? So this is before Yahuwah came, a day of a Yahuwah came and scattered and took them in bondage. Okay? So this is saying this what they're going into is the people who sin is going to have a mark on them, and the people who did not is going to have a mark on them. Okay? All right. Right now, who's getting a mark or a negative mark, if we want to say that? It is Jehu. Okay. He says, I am about to punish King Jehu's dynasty. Okay. All right. And then the rest of the people is going to get punished as well. We're going to go to Matthew 26:52. All right, and it says, put away your sword. Yahusha told him, those who use the sword will die by the sword. Okay? Those who use the sword will die by the sword. Okay? So again, he had placed, if we're looking at Genesis 4:15, okay, I'm going to read that again. It says, Yahuwah replied, no, for I have given a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you. Then Yahuwah put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. Okay? All right. So with that being said, what he's saying right now in Matthew that we just read, he said that those who use the sword will die by the sword. Okay, this is the first instance. Okay, this is the first instance. Cain was the first one. He killed his brother Seth. Okay, all right. Now, where it solidified it, Yah said, I'm going to put a mark on you. Okay, and whoever kills you, all right, then there's going to be a problem. This is just saying, even though Cain did wrong, he's not saying that Cain did anything right or anything of that nature. He's just solidifying, even though Cain killed his brother, I don't want bloodshed. I don't want a man killing another man. So whoever kills Cain, okay, is going to be problems. Okay. All right. We're still at verse 15. All right. We're going to look at sevenfold. Okay. We kind of already talked about that, looked at that. All right. But we're going to go to Leviticus 26:18. Okay. So it says, actually, we're going to go Genesis first. Genesis 4:24. Genesis 4:24. All right. And this is what I was just saying here. Genesis 4:24. And it says, if anyone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, okay, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times. Okay? All right? So, yep, it's not you. But with that being said, it's understood, okay? It's understood that whoever kills Cain, and we don't know this. We don't know this because, for instance, he says, okay, if someone kills Cain, if someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times. So remember, they do know they did talk to Yah. So we don't know. But the reason why I want to say this is a solidified thing is because what did Yahusha say to either Peter, or I think it was Peter, it was one of them, one of the disciples. He said, well, how many times should I forgive? And he said 77 times. So we don't know, but it is a thing. Okay. It is some significance to it. Okay. All right. Leviticus 26 and 18. And it says, and if in spite of all this you still disobey me, I will punish you 7 times over for your sins. Okay. All right. So it's going to be an ongoing theme. If y'all familiar with Leviticus, okay, this is before, well, he's talking about some of the things that we shouldn't do, okay, but in Deuteronomy 27 is those curses as well, but he's laying it down. If we sin and then we continue and not turn to him, okay, this is what he's saying, okay? So go to Leviticus 26:21, okay? If even then you remain hostile towards me and refuse to obey me, I will inflict disaster on you 7 times over for your sins. Okay, so he keeps saying he's giving us chances, right? Okay, he gives us chances, and then he says, okay, if you still don't turn away, I'm gonna even more, seven more times. Okay, Leviticus 26:24, he says, then I myself will be hostile towards you. I will personally strike you with calamity 7 times over for your sins. He is going in, all right? He's keep repeating it. If you sin and then I'm going to punish you 7 times, then I'm going to punish you another 7 times, okay? So we're going to go to the next one, okay? So that was Leviticus 26:24. Now this is Leviticus 26:28, okay? And it says, then I will give full vent to my hostility. I myself will punish you 7 times over for your sins, okay? So after we sin, there's curses and punishments to it, okay? You get a few tries and then he's going to directly punish you. Psalms 79:12, it says, O Yahuwah, pay back our neighbors 7 times for the scorn they have hurled at us. Okay, so we get the theme. All right, so everybody knows when somebody does something wrong and they living in that wrong, we're going to be punished 7 times. All right, and I'm going to read this one, Proverbs 6:31. But if he is caught, he must pay back 7 times what he stole, even if he has to sell everything in his house. Okay, so 7 is that significant number. All right, so we're looking at that punishment. Genesis. All right. Going to the last set of references real quick for Genesis 4:15, okay? And it says, set a mark, talking about the mark, all right? It's giving other instances where he's speaking about marking or people being marked, whether it's for him or marked by the devil, okay? So first one, Ezekiel 9, verse 4, it says, he said to him, walk through the streets of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of all who weep and sigh because of the detestable sins being committed in their city. Okay. All right. So this happened in Ezekiel and it happened in a few other places. Okay. And we A lot of people don't realize this because they don't read the Old Testament. But this is what's going to happen at the end times is he's going to have the angels go and place a mark on the people who follows Yah. Okay? He's going to place a mark. So he's saying right here, this happened already. This happened on the day of Yahuwah, where he came and sent them out to bondage and killed and all of that. But the ones who was living right, he said, walk through the streets of Jerusalem and put a mark on the forehead of all who weep and sigh because of the detestable sins being committed in their city. Okay? So those are the ones, when chaos is going on, okay, chaos is not going to even be able to see them because a mark is on them. All right? I'll go into it real quick. That was verse 4. And then I'll read verse 5 and 6. And it says, Then I heard Yahuwah say to the other men, follow them through the city and kill anyone whose forehead is not marked. Show no mercy, have no pity. Okay, kill them all, old, young, girls, and women and little children. But do not touch anyone with the mark. Begin right here in the temple. So they began to kill the 70 leaders. Okay, those are the religious leaders that was leading Yasharal's people astray. So they began with them first because their responsibility was to show them what was right. Okay, we're going to Revelations 14 and 9. Revelations 14 and 9. All right. Obviously, this is at the day of Yahuwah. Okay, and it says, Then a third angel followed them, shouting, Anyone who worships the beast and his statue, or who accept his mark on their forehead or on the hand. Okay, so anyone, all right, who has that mark, who's following the beast or his statue, okay, those are the ones who are going to be killed. All right, Revelations 14 and 11. Actually, I just go ahead and go to it. All right. And it says, the smoke of their torment will rise forever and ever, and they will have no relief day or night, for they have worshipped the beast and his statue and have accepted the mark of his name. Okay? All right, so when you accept the mark of his name or accept the beast or follow the beast, okay, he says, their torment will rise forever and ever. Okay, no relief day or night. Okay, all right. Just emphasis on when Yah puts a mark on someone. All right, now we're going to verse 16. Genesis 4, verse 16. Reading it in the King James Version. And it says, And Cain went out from the presence of Yahuwah and dwelt in a land of Nod on the east of Eden. Okay. All right. The Strong's coordinates of presence is H6440. Okay. Here, the presence of Yah, that means the face of Yah. Okay. So we're going to look at that real quick. We're going to go into that. Okay. Again, a lot of people don't know, but the word pineal gland, piney, comes from the Hebrew word of pinein, face. Again, the face as the part that turns, used in a great variety of applications, literally and figuratively. The next way they use it as coming before someone, so approaching someone, against someone, anger, battle. That's another word for the pinein, to face or the face. So it says from the presence of Yahuwah. So it means the face of Yahuwah, out of his presence. All right. So remember Nod or Nud, the word? And it says in this verse, and settled in the land of Nod. What was the word that we looked up? Nod popped up. Y'all don't remember? Okay. It was either vagabond or fugitive. Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna click on that real quick. All right. And it says it was fragrancy, nude, Nod. Okay, Nod, the land of Cain. Okay, so he went to the land of Nod, say wandering, exile. All right. So he said he was a vagabond, which means to be a wanderer, right? And then when he was exiled, he went to a land that was an exile or the land where you would wander. Okay. All right. So that was the land of Nod when he left the presence of Yahuwah. All right. So good to know and understand. So that land was called Nod. All right. So when he went from the presence of Yahuwah, we're going to read some of these references for that verse. We're going to start with Genesis 3 and 8. So from the presence, went from the presence. All right. And it says, when the cool evening breeze were blowing, the man and his wife heard YAHUAH ELOHIM walking about in the garden. So they hid from YAHUAH ELOHIM among the trees. Okay. So again, all right, they did wrong and they did what? They went away and hid. Okay. They hid from his presence. So anytime we do wrong, remember last week, he said, I will put a curse on you of confusion and frustration. Okay. When we do things wrong, our eyes are then blinded and we think that we can hide, or that curse that he gives us is that we forget that we can't hide from him. We can't hide from what's true. Okay. All right. So they tried to hide from Yahuwah. All right. And not only they tried to hide, they tried to fix it themselves. So after they ate the fruit, they tried to cover themselves. Right. But what was the first thing he did? He killed a lamb or killed whatever he used and covered them. Right. All right. So when we do wrong, we are either too shamed to turn back. Okay. That's that curse. The emotions of shame or jealousy or pride to turn back to him. Okay, that's that initial curse that he said, confusion. Because if Yah is all good, why don't we go turn right back to him if it's just that simple, right? All right, we're going to go to Exodus 20:18. Exodus 20:18. Again, this is about went from the presence of him. So as soon as he was exiled, he went out of the presence, which he had to, of Yahuwah. And it says, when the people heard the thunder and the loud blast of the ram's horn, and when they saw the flashes of lightning and the smoke bellowing from the mountain, they stood at the distance trembling with fear. So y'all remember the story? Okay, this was in the wilderness when Yah told Moses to gather the people. So he's coming in 3 days, I believe. He's coming in 3 days to show that he's talking to Moses and all that, and to speak to the people so they can hear the words of Yah. Okay, this is what it was. They were still not fully on board in my understanding. Okay, But they said before this happened, they said, we'll do, we'll do all that you command us, right? But when he came, it says, and when the people heard the thunder and the loud blast of the ram's horn, and when they saw the flashing and lightning and the smoke bellowing from the mountain, they stood at a distance, trembling with fear. And what did they say to Moses after that? Y'all remember? They said, "Hey, we don't want to talk to Yahuwah. We want you talk to Yahuwah and tell us, right?" Yep. And they literally said, "We don't want to die unless we die." Okay. So I'm going to go into it, and it says, and they said to Moses, "You speak to us and we will listen, but don't let don't let Elohim speak directly to us, or we will die." That's literally what they said. They was in fear. And what my understanding is truly their heart wasn't there. Okay. That's why they was fully afraid and stood off and say, "Hey," because they're like, again, just a little while, just a little while after that, they made a golden calf. And then what happened? They died. Okay. All right. Yeah, we're no different. We're no different. We're on the references written from the presence. Okay. And it says 2 Kings 24 and 20. And it says, "These things happen because of Yahuwah's anger against the people of Jerusalem and Judah," that's Israel as in whole, "until he finally banished them from his presence and sent them into exile. Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babel." Okay. So when we continue not to listen, and as the people of Yasharal, which is a great example, they continue not to listen, he sent them off in exile. Okay. All right. So they went out away from his presence. So they're being slaves and killed off now because of their disobedience. Okay. So they went away from his presence. And that's one of the curses. Any kind of adultery. When y'all reading your Bible, it is a direct curse for adultery. Okay, adultery is famine. Anytime where you see rampant adultery in the Bible, there's famine right after. So when y'all reading it, take a look at that. Famine. I mean, adultery, serving another. Yeah, idolatry. Yeah, I say it sounds the same for me. Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. No, I'm just saying. Nah, yeah. So that's what happened. Yeah. The sense. All right. So we're going to Job chapter 1 verse 2. Okay. Here's something that most people don't, a lot of people question, well, why Yah allow things, okay? Or he wouldn't allow bad or whatever. Yah allows things to happen to strengthen your faith, or you turn away from him. Okay. Everything is under the subjection of Yah. Okay. So it says, all right, you may test him. Okay. This is Yahuwah talking to Satan. Says, you must test him. Yahuwah said to Satan, "Do whatever you want with anything he possessed, but don't harm him physically." So Satan left the presence of Yah. Okay. All right. So we know about Job. Satan touched Job, all his possessions, his kids, and all that, took it away. Okay. But that was under the subjection of Yah, right? Because first, you know, Yah actually, asked, Satan, he was like, where you been? He's like, Satan was like going to and fro, trying to find whoever I may devour, right? And then Yahuwah said, how about my servant Job? Have you tried him? And he was like, well, you got a hedge around him. Why would I even try? You protect him and you just bless him, bountifully. Why would he even, if if um if you take his things, blah blah blah, he'll be quick to turn away from you. All right. So that's where Yahuwah said, okay, do whatever you want with anything he possessed. Try him. Okay. All right. Job 2:7. So Satan came back to Yahuwah, okay, after his attempt failed with taking his possessions. And and then it says, so Satan left Yahuwah's presence and struck Job with terrible boils from head to foot. So this is the second go round. He's like, all right, you can harm Job physically, but you can't kill him. And see if he's going to turn from me. Okay? Job didn't. All right? He was in the presence of Yah. All right? Jeremiah 23, verse 39. And it says, I will forget you completely. I will expel you from my presence among this city that I gave to you and your ancestors. Okay? All right? Expelling them out of his presence. All right. So I'm going to go into this one real quick. All right. I'm going to scroll up real quick and tell you what this one is about. All right. So this one is about lying prophets. Okay. This section is about lying prophets. Before I read what I just read again, I'm going to go to what is it? Where is it? All right. So I'm going to read Jeremiah 23, 12, 13, and 14. And actually, I'm starting with 11. And it says, even the priests and prophets are ungodly, wicked men. I have seen their despicable acts right here in my own temple, says Yah. Therefore, the paths they take will become slippery. They will be chased through the dark, and there they will fall. For I will bring disaster upon them at the time fixed for their punishment. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. And I saw that the prophets of Samaria were terribly evil, for they prophesied in the name of Baal and led my people of Yasharal into sin. But now I see that the prophets of Jerusalem are even worse. They commit adultery, okay, and love dishonesty. They encourage those who are doing evil so that no one turns away from their sins. These prophets are as wicked as the people of Sodom and Gomorrah once were. All right. But we're going to move down to Jeremiah 23, 26. This is what I was looking for. Still talking about the prophets. Okay. All right, and it says, I'm going to start at 25, and it says, I have heard these prophets say, listen to the dream I had from Yahuwah or Elohim last night. Okay, so they're lying. It says, and then they proceeded to tell lies, okay, in my name. How long will this go on? If they are prophets of deceit, inventing everything they say. By telling these false dreams, They are trying to get my people to forget me, just as their ancestors did by worshiping the idol of Baal. Okay? All right, I'm going to read that verse one more time in King James 27, and it says, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor as their father, to forget my name for Baal. Okay, so what does Baal mean? When we look up Baal, if y'all go to Google real quick, Google Baal. What does Baal mean? Their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Google what it means. Oh, Google what it means. You could do it in English. Lord. Forget my name for Lord. So what do we call him all the time? Forget my name for Baal. So he's telling you, in the future, y'all gonna be calling me Baal. That's not my name. That's not who I am. So we're calling him Lord. And that's Baal. All right. So in that story of the prophets, at the very end, the verse that we went to originally, it says, and I will forget you completely. I will expel you from my presence, along with the city that I gave to you and your ancestors, and I will make you an object of ridicule, and your name will be infamous throughout the ages. Okay. All right. So these people, because of what they did, they're vagabonds for ages. All right. Something to think about. Fugitives, homeless wanderers, don't have a house. All right. Something to think about. All right. Genesis 16. So Matthew 18:20, we're still talking about went out from the presence of Yah. And it says, Matthew 18, verse 20, it says, for where two or three gather together as my followers, I am there among them. Okay. So two or three, okay, as my followers, I'm among them. So where there's two or three, his presence is among them. Okay. If not, that means majority of the situations we in, his presence is not there. See what I'm saying? All right, last one of this one. Luke 13:26. And it says, then you will say, but we ate and drank with you, and you taught in our streets. So this is the Messiah, and he's telling us what they're going to say at the end times. All right, he says, then you will say, but we ate and drank with you, and you taught in our streets. That don't mean nothing. I personally ate and drank with a lot of people. That don't mean they're my people. And that's what he's saying. He's saying this is what's going to happen. Okay? He said, and he will reply, I tell you, I don't know you or where you come from. Get away from me and all who do evil. That's what he's going to say. Just because we spoke and just because you did say a little word here or there, but you lived in sin, that doesn't mean anything. Okay? All right. Going back to Genesis 16. And we're looking at the bottom, okay, which we already kind of explained. Okay. Here it says Nod, okay. Nod, so called from Nod, okay, a vagabond, okay, which Cain is termed in Genesis, okay, Genesis 4 and 12. So he was termed a vagabond or Nod, okay, but he went and lived in the land of Nod, okay. So they just pointing that out. Genesis 4 and 17, okay, and it says, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to the references. And it says Enoch here. This is where it's going to give us the difference here. Okay, Genesis Genesis 5:18, the first one we're going to go to. Okay, and it says, when Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch or Hanak. Okay, so with that being said, we know this is not Cain's Enoch. Okay, this is Jared's Enoch. Okay, the lineage, Jared's Enoch is the lineage of Seth. Okay, all right. Genesis 5:22, and it says, after the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with Elohim for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. So they going on and explaining, okay, this is not the same Enoch. Okay, all right. So we know that. All right. We're going to look at the references where it says, and he built a city. Okay, so it says apparently he left the land of Nod, or this could be the land of Nod, but he says, it says, and he built a city, okay, and called it the name after his son Enoch. Okay, so he built a city. All right, let's go to the references. First one is Genesis 11 and 4. Okay. All right. Giving references about how we should look at cities. Okay. Then they said, come, let us build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world. Okay, he said, keep them from being scattered all over the world. So, what is that saying? What is this whole thing saying, actually? They were actually pumping up themselves, but they was challenging God. So they said, let us build a great city for ourselves. Okay. So he can't scatter us. So, okay, what does that say about cities so far? Okay. All right. Let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower. Okay. Why are they building a great tower? To go to heaven. But another reason was what just happened? The great flood. So they trying to build this tower. So if God ever decides to flood, they feel like they can escape, right? All right. And then it says, this will make us famous and keep us from being scattered. And he says, we know Yahuwah says, make us famous. They were even worried about that. Yeah, I know, right? Right, right. Let's see. Because he wanted us to go to the ends of the earth or migrate. Okay. Yeah, he wanted us. Yep, he wanted us to go out. He wanted us to go out and live among the land. Okay, he wanted us to separate. But what happened? Actually, I'm gonna go back to that again. The very next verse, it says, but Yahuwah came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. Look, he said, the people are united and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Okay? So thinking about the times now, Yahuwah knows, think about the times now. Going to, quote unquote, going to space. Okay? All these things, AI, all these things we're doing, he says, is nothing they set out to do will be impossible. He says that. Okay? That don't mean good, but he knows. So, yes, it's yeah. Oh yeah. And then that next verse said, come, let us go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other. Okay. And it says, in that way, Yahuwah scattered them all over the world. So he scattered them anyway. And then it says, and they stopped building the city. Okay. And then he actually demolished the rest of it, whatever, you know. So that's the first reference about a city being built. Okay. We got Ecclesiastes 2:4-11. This is Solomon. And it says, I also tried to find meaning in building huge homes for myself, and by planting beautiful vineyards, I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I brought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasures of many kings and providence. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women. I had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labor. But as I look at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless. Like chasing the wind, there was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. All right. So he started off talking about the cities, having a great city, building a great home. Okay. All right. All right. We're going to go to Daniel 4:30. All right. Daniel chapter 4, verse 30. And it says, as he looked out across the city, he said, look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor. So anytime we're building anything, okay, this is how they describe cities. So anytime, if you look back at history and we're trying to look at religious things and things of that nature, those big major cities and major empires, they're always going to have other deities than Yahuwah. They're always, because that's where it stems from. Okay? It's always. But Yahuwah spread it through the word and through the wanderers throughout the land. Okay? They got all this There's written information on the walls and things in these great cities from thousands of years ago, but it's from the people who were serving other deities. Okay? All right, last one in this section, Luke 17, 28, 29. All right. This is, all of this is right now, but this is right now. And the world will be as it was in the days of Lot. People went about their daily business, eating and drinking, buying and selling, farming and building, like it ain't nothing, like it's just another day, until the morning. Lot left Sodom, then fire and burning sulfur rained down from the heaven and destroyed them all. So we're going to be too busy in the things that we enjoy, buying and selling, our daily business, okay? Eating and drinking, farming and building, all right? All those things are good or not evil in their own right, okay? But buying and selling, we know how we look at that these days, okay? All right, we're so distracted from Yah. And then it says, until the morning Lot left Sodom, then fire and burning sulfur rained down from heaven to destroy them. All right. So we're thinking about this major city. It's actually describing the city, okay, as being wicked, because Sodom, we all know Sodom and Gomorrah was wicked. So it was a wicked city. So the cities are wicked. Okay. All right. They're not following Yah's word. Okay. When you get into Sodom and Gomorrah, it explains, when you read Jasher, okay, it explains a little more in depth what they did in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is really, really good to read. Okay. But he's saying in these cities, we're not thinking about him. We're just eating and drinking, going about our daily business. Okay. That's what cities are. They're loud. They're distracting. Okay. All right. The last part of verse 17. Okay. And it says, and he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Check this out. All right. 2 Samuel 18:18. And it says, during his lifetime, Absalom had built a monument to himself in the king's valley, for he said, I have no son to carry on my name. He named the monument after himself, and it is known as Absalom's monument to this day. Okay? So, obviously, there's a problem here. And what's the problem? What's the problem? Let's read the next one. See if we get it. Psalms 49:11. And it says, the grave is their eternal home, where they will stay forever. They may name their estates after themselves. What is this saying? Bringing honor to themselves. Legacy. Building cities is a legacy. And then naming it. We're talking about legacy here. Okay? Everything. 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 All right. I'm going to go into that one a little bit more. And it says, Psalms 49:10, and it says, those who are wise must finally die, just like the foolish and senseless, leaving all their wealth behind. Then it says, the grave is their eternal home, where they will stay forever. They may name their estates for themselves, but their fame will not last. They will die just like animals. This is the fate of fools, though they are remembered as being wise, as they are remembered as being wise. So he's saying the people who are wise here, that create these major things and legacies, they're fools. They're lifting themselves up. They live in a legacy, and the legacy is already set. The legacy is supposed to be, is going to be who? Whose? Yahuwah's. Okay? They're lifting themselves up. All right? Okay? It says, that last verse said again, and it says, this is the fate of fools, though they are remembered as being wise. Okay? All right? We're going to go back. It's 14, 17. All right. So, Genesis verse 15 through 17. All right. After reading those verses and reading the references, okay, what this is actually saying and what I got from it, okay, is Cain, again, Cain was a vagabond, right? Banned into the wilderness, okay? And you know, when you're a vagabond or when you kill someone, what's the law? A relative can come and take care of you, can kill you, and it'd be a just kill, okay? All right, so he's afraid for his life. So he starts this city, all right? He starts this city in his name because he's away from everybody else. So he got family and things of that nature. Of course, they live in hundreds of years, okay? All right, so he builds this city, and you have others that come in and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, he names this city after his son, okay? All right. He's lifting up himself in his legacy. Okay. So that was just added on to that curse. He said him being out there doing this was just a curse yet again. Okay. All right. The first city built. All right. After that, as we read, you know, we go through the lineage and all of that good stuff, we're going to see the other cities and how they talk about those cities. Okay. Of course, the major city that we're going to eventually get to is Babel, the Tower of Babel. We just kind of talked about. Okay. Now, with that being said, to kind of close out the majority of the story of Cain and Abel, all right, there is one more piece left, but I am going to go ahead and get into this. So again, Adam and Eve had Cain first. Okay, then they had Abel. All right, and it came to a point of time where it was time to collect the harvest. Okay, collect the harvest and give your offering to Yahuwah. Okay, we understood that that was the same thing as first fruits, where you offer your first harvest. Okay, you give your best to Yahuwah. Okay, Yahuwah accepted Abel's. Okay, because he did what he was supposed to. He gave the firstbornling. Okay, and the fat thereof of the firstbornling. Cain did not, because obviously Yah said, if you do right, you would be accepted. But he didn't do what was right, and then he what became jealous. All right, became jealous of Abel. Once you don't do what's right, then there's going to be emotion. That emotion was anger and jealousy. And then that anger and jealousy, what? Came out to be what? Murder. Right? Okay. So Abel was just, Cain was not. Cain killed Abel. All right. Cain killed Abel. Abel was the just, okay, child. So Abel was the sacrifice for the family because Adam and Eve sinned. All right. So when Adam and Eve sinned, let me go ahead and just go through this. Okay. Let me go through this. So I put here, it says the first family, Adam and Eve. Okay. After Adam and Eve sinned, okay, each one of them got curses. Okay. Yahuwah gave Adam a curse, gave Eve a curse, and gave the serpent a curse. Okay. And it says, the first curse is going to the serpent first. And it says, the serpent chose to deceive Eve. Okay. It says the first curse was cursed above all animals. That was the first curse. Okay. All right. Second curse that the devil got, and it says you will labor to bring forth food, dust devouring man. So remember, food for the serpent is what? Man. Okay. That's why he said dust, because man was made of dust. Okay. So he's laboring to consume our souls, get us to turn away from Yah. Okay. The next one is her seed, meaning Eve's seed. Okay. Her seed will strike the head of your seed. Okay. Meaning the serpent. Okay. And the serpent seed will strike the heel of Eve's seed. So that's literally saying both the Messiah will be born and strike the head of the devil, okay? And the devil is going to bite the heel of the Messiah, okay? Literally speaking about those two. But also, after the Messiah died, Yah gave us power to step on serpents, snakes, and scorpions, and things of that nature, but through the power through him, okay? So that's the curse that he gave the serpent, the devil, okay? Because when he was cursed above all, he was banished into the wilderness, okay? All right. Then there's Adam, okay? Adam chose to listen to his wife instead of Yah. And it says, after he chose to listen, an animal had to be sacrificed, okay? Then it says, he was banished from the presence of Yah out of paradise, okay? All right. Then it says, then he had to till the land, labor for food. Okay. That was Adam. All right. Eve chose to listen to the serpent and not her husband. She now have to labor, again, the word labor, in pain, okay, for pregnancy. For not listening to her husband, her desire is to rule over her husband, but the authority was given to her husband. Okay, so that's another curse. So the husband is to rule over the wife. And then the third one is one child was killed, was sacrificed, and the other was banished. All right. So now we go back. Now we go to Cain. Cain chose to do what was wrong and not listen to Yah. Okay. So what did Cain get? He said, just like with Eve, he said, sin will be Cain's desire, and he will be ruled by sin, envy, jealousy, adultery, murder, idolatry, etc. So it will rule over Cain. Just like Eve didn't listen to her husband, that desire became authority over her. Same thing here. He didn't want to listen, so sin became Cain's desire. All right. All right. And it says, Cain, like Adam, he had to till the earth, labor for food. Okay. Like Eve, his desire ruled over him. Like the serpent, he was banished from Yah as a homeless wanderer. So we see how all this is playing out, right? Okay, so obviously Cain is the sin of the family. All right, so Cain got all the curses that of all three of them: the serpent, the husband, and the wife. Okay, Abel. Abel was the first fruit of Adam and Eve. Okay, he wasn't the firstborn, but he was the righteous one. Okay, and he listened to Yah. Yes. All right, and it says Abel was their best. Okay, and it says the first one says was a shepherd. So he was a shepherd. We know what we talked about with shepherds. Okay, Yah always used shepherds in that lineage. All right, because they had certain qualities, okay, about themselves: compassion. They protected the flock, so on and so forth. Okay, the second was obeyed Yah. All right, third one was sacrificed his own desire. Okay, giving up the best what he had. He gave the best, the first bornling. Okay, gave up his own way of living, giving it to Yah instead of keeping it for himself, unlike Cain did. Obviously, Cain didn't do right. Okay, and then it says Abel, unblemished lamb. He's the unblemished lamb, the harvest. He was harvested and laid up in the barn. So he was the first fruit. He was harvested and he was set aside for a better time. Okay. Now, get back to Cain. All right. So Abel was the first fruit. Cain was the atonement. Cain was the atonement. He atoned for the family's sins. Okay. It says the result of the sins of the family. 2, led into the wilderness. 3, waited for death. Okay. 4, unfruitful brush waiting to be thrown into the fire. All right, that's Cain. So the results of the sins of the family. So we know, just like now, we're only in this culture we live. We're we only know what our parents teach us, and our parents only know what their parents teach them, and so on and so forth. So those curses of our families throughout the lineage, if they were doing wrong then, they would teach their kids, and the kids wouldn't see anything wrong, and so on and so forth, right? So again, here it says, in the result of the sins of the family. So Cain was the result of the sins of the family. All right. And it says, I'm going to skip down, and it says, waited for death. So he was banished into the wilderness, and what he was afraid all the time, right? He said, whoever finds me will kill me. Okay. So again, just like the devil knows he's on borrowed time. So he's doing what he can until the day of Yahuwah comes, and he knows he's going down there. Same thing here. Cain was waiting for his death. Okay, and again, just like we talked about the parable that the Messiah gave, he says the unfruitful brush, or the tares, or the weeds. Okay, the harvester is going to pick all the weeds. Okay, and throw them in the furnace at the end of the harvest. Okay, so that was Cain. He was the atonement. But ultimately, ultimately, he was an atonement for the family. Who is our atonement? Yep, the Messiah. So the difference is, and the reason why this story is significant, we have to understand, is that it has to be an atonement for us. Okay, but the difference is the Messiah did not sin. So he took all of our sins, just like Cain took all of the sins of his family, and he was banished, right? The Messiah took all of our sins, okay, and he was killed for it. So that his blood, his pure blood, okay, atoned for our sins. Cain's blood atoned for their family sins. But it's different with Yahushua, the Messiah, and he did what he was supposed to. All right, and then and it says Satan, serpent, is the adversary. He was banished from the presence of Yah, the transgressions of Yahuwah's will. Okay, all right, so he is pretty much the transgression of Yahuwah's will. Okay, he's a wanderer going to and fro, trying to find whoever he can devour. Okay, a wanderer waiting his condemnation. Okay, to be thrown in the furnace. All right, now that we understand Seth real quick, Seth is also equivalent to the Most High. So the Most High is equivalent to the first fruit, like we talked about last week. He was the first to die and rise again. He was Yahuwah's first fruit. Okay. The Messiah is the equivalent for atonement. Okay. All right. He died for all of our sins. All right. And then he's equivalent to what Seth is going to be. Okay. Seth was the forgiveness, okay, and promise. Because after Cain died, well, Seth was born before Cain died, way before, but they were given Seth in the likeness of Adam. And that's how it's read in the book. He said, who's been given a child in the likeness of me. So it meant that he was righteous, in a sense. So Seth was a promise to keep the lineage going, because Abel died, and then Cain was the seed of, and that's what I didn't say. In that prophesy of Yahuwah saying, thy seed, the woman's seed, and the serpent seed is going to be enmity between them two. Okay, Cain is the seed of Satan. Okay, of the devil, right? Okay, so that's what we have to understand. Okay, but with Seth again, Seth was the forgiveness. After Cain died, Seth was the promise and the forgiveness, all right, of the family, so the lineage can go on, right? Because there was no more sons at that time. Well, it was, but they had many more children. But Seth was the only one that they had again, only child that they had that was like Adam. Okay, and he was the promise for the lineage. All right, and it says, and he was a shepherd, provider, protector, fear Yahuwah, faithful and obedient. He was the redeemer of the family. Okay, so all these feasts that's going on in the Old Testament, and what the Bible really stands for, it's actually pointing all to the Messiah before they even got, way before the Ten Commandments. Okay, all of this was done in the first family. It's being shown, it's being prophesied before all of the rest of everything that went on. Okay, all right. So that's why it's very important to understand the Old Testament and not throw these festivals out to the side, and understand how we should honor those festivals. Understand the correlation between the Messiah and between what Yahuwah wants you to know, and so you can be in alignment with Yahuwah. Okay. Just real quick, from the things that we think about for the oncoming stories, we can look at the first fruits and the atonements throughout all the stories. All right. We'll start off with Shem and Ham. Shem was the first fruit. Ham was an atonement. Okay. In looking at the son of Yah, or the seed of Yah, or the seed of the devil. Okay. We can look at Abraham and the other nations. All right. We can look at Isaac and Ishmael. All right. And most of the time, like with Seth was, well, that's different. Like Isaac and Ishmael, Ishmael came first, then it was Isaac. So it wasn't the firstborn. It didn't have to be the firstborn. Okay. What I'm saying is it shows Jacob and Esau. All right. It shows this is Yah's seed. This is Satan's seed. Okay. All through the Bible. So it's telling, again, it says these feasts and the Sabbaths is shadows for things to come. Okay. And that's what it means. It's telling this story over and over and over through things that actually happen. And that's the significance, because he's trying to show us how important these things are.